In a world full of stress management workshops and resilience toolkits, are we missing the point of what it truly means to endure? In this episode of Mind the Gap, Michael challenges the quick-fix culture that turns resilience into a checklist, and instead, he invites us to discover a deeper, Stoic approach to living with composure and purpose, even when life doesn't give us easy options, with insights from ancient philosophy. This episode will leave you questioning what you carry, what you can let go, and how you define strength in your own life. Here's Michael.
It starts with a flip chart. Somewhere in a nondescript hotel meeting room, there's a training day. On the wall, coloured sticky notes. A handout with resilience toolkit in a friendly font and a scatter of mindfulness bells, stress balls, and maybe even cupcakes. The facilitator uses words like breathe through it and find your calm. The team is encouraged to name their stressors as if identifying them will neutralise their power. Everyone smiles politely. Some take notes, and by 4 o'clock the room smells faintly of coffee and effort. The handouts go into bags, and everyone returns to their desks the next morning. And nothing has changed. Not the workload, not the toxic manager, not the impossible deadlines. The ambiguity, the exhaustion, or the fact that resilience, real resilience, was never on offer in that room. Years ago, I began to speak up, publicly and persistently, against what I came to call the resilience cupcake movement. It was the era of checklists and quick-fix well-being, where resilience was something you could train in an afternoon, and stress could be managed with a scented candle. I challenged it, and I met resistance. Not from the people in the room, mind you, they often nodded in silent agreement, but from the organisations who commissioned the sessions. Because they didn't want resilience, they wanted compliance. They wanted the appearance of doing something. They wanted a box ticked. So today, let's get honest about it. Let's strip resilience back to its roots. And with the help of the Stoics, those ancient, unflinching philosophers, let's find something real again. Being resilient isn't a toolkit, it's a way of being. The Stoics never held stress balls. They didn't ask you to visualize a beach or write in a gratitude journal. They asked one question again and again: what is within your control? Epictetus, born into slavery and disabled, later became one of the most influential Stoic teachers. He wrote nothing down himself. It was his student Arian who captured his teachings. And here's the heart of it. It's not what's happening to you, it's how you react to it that matters. Seneca, forced to take his own life under Nero's orders, wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Musonius Rufus, perhaps the most pragmatic of them all, argued that hardship was the training ground for character, that comfort dulls us, and the true test of a person is not in how they avoid suffering, but in how they move through it, deliberately, calmly, without complaint. And that's the difference. Modern stress management often aims to reduce discomfort. The Stoics expected discomfort. They trained for it. They didn't soften the blow. They built the jaw to take the hit. Now, let's look honestly at why the cupcake version of resilience became so popular. I'll offer you 3 reasons. First, it focuses on comfort over capacity. It says, when you're overwhelmed, take a break. And yes, rest is important. But without developing the deeper muscles of endurance, all we're doing is pausing the panic. Stoicism doesn't say, don't feel. It says, don't be ruled by feelings. It invites you to acknowledge discomfort and to keep going intact. Second, it avoids the systemic. Many resilience workshops are, ironically, sources of moral injury. They frame stress as a personal failure. You're burnt out. You mustn't be journaling enough. But the Stoics knew that some things are beyond us. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor writing in a tent during war, reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you'll find strength." If your organization is broken, no breathing app will fix it. And third, it promotes emotional bypassing. Gratitude is good, but forced gratitude becomes toxic. When you are pressured to stay positive in the face of injustice, exploitation, or grief, you're being asked not to grow, but to shut up. That's not resilience, that's denial. So let's ask the harder question. If we stripped away the candles and the stress balls, what would resilience training actually look like? It would start, I believe, not with a flip chart, but with silence. A moment of honest, deliberate stillness. Not to escape the world, but to see it clearly. And then from that stillness, it would teach 3 things. First, radical acceptance. Now, this doesn't mean approval. It means full acknowledgement of what is without flinching. The Stoics called this amor fati, a love of fate, to accept, even embrace what is outside your control. As Viktor Frankl later echoed from Auschwitz, when we're no longer able to change the situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. Second, voluntary hardship. This one's not popular, but it's powerful. Cleanthes, the Stoic who succeeded Zeno, once said, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." Imagine a dog tied to a cart. The road ahead is rocky, the path uncertain. The dog can resist and be dragged or walk in step. Either way, the path must be travelled. Stoic training encourages us to take on small, controlled difficulties. Fasting, cold showers, delaying gratification, speaking in public, whatever makes us uncomfortable. Why? Because these things build tolerance. Not toughness for its own sake, but because a person who has practiced difficulty is not easily shaken. And third, moral clarity. Not everything deserves your energy. Some things are worth enduring, some are not. A Stoic doesn't suffer for suffering's sake. They endure what must be endured in service of a higher principle: integrity, duty, justice. No handout. No, you've got this. Just philosophy and resolve. Let me offer you a different voice. Not a general, not a philosopher. A woman, a writer, a witness to one of history's darkest hours. Etty Hillesum was a Dutch Jewish woman who kept a diary during the Nazi occupation. She had the opportunity to hide, to run. She chose instead to remain, to face it and to find peace, not in escape, but in awareness. In one of her final diary entries, she wrote, "The only thing we can save in these times is our inner lives." That line stops people because it holds the entire Stoic worldview in a single sentence. When others crumbled, Etty nurtured stillness. She witnessed horror, but refused to let it rot her soul. She believed that if she could keep her inner world clean, compassionate, and awake, then the world had not yet won. She wrote letters. She comforted children. She said yes to presence. And although she died aged just 29 in Auschwitz, her words endure, not because they offer comfort, because they offer truth. No toolbox, no laminated handout, just one human being quietly anchored to the idea that how we carry what happens to us is where our power lies. This too is resilience. So how can we bring this to the everyday? Here are 3 ways: quiet, deliberate, and deceptively simple. First, when something difficult happens, try replacing "I'm stressed" with "I'm encountering something difficult and I'm still standing." This simple shift acknowledges the strain without surrendering to it. Second, carry the Stoic question with you. Is this within my control? If yes, do something about it. If no, let it go. You'd be amazed how many meetings, conversations, and inner battles this will clear up. Third, reflect on the trichotomy of control, not just the binary. There are things you can control, your actions. There are things you can influence, like preparation or your tone. And there are things you cannot control at all, like someone else's opinion. Your energy belongs to the first two. And let me say something here, especially to those who feel they've failed at resilience. You haven't. You've just been fed a version that doesn't fit. You don't need to be unbreakable. You need to be aligned with your values, with reality, with your chosen path. And you don't need more tools. You need more truth. I'll leave you with a final image. We're back in that hotel training room. But this time the training looks different. No cupcakes. No handouts. Instead, on the wall is a single quote from Marcus Aurelius. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. There's no promise of ease, only a promise of clarity. And you're not here to manage stress. You're here to carry what must be carried and to set down what never belonged to you in the first place. And that is resilience. Mind the gap.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Mind the Gap, where we explored resilience without the cupcakes, looking instead to the Stoics and to the quiet courage of Etty Hillesum for a deeper, more honest way to face what life brings. If you found this episode helpful, please consider sharing it with a friend or colleague who might be tired of quick fixes and looking for something real. You can also leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. It helps others find these conversations. And don't forget, there's a companion series, Echoes from the Margin. If you'd like to continue reflecting on how we live, lead, and learn with a bit more clarity and courage.